some words that I will never forget. I was told to do your own thing, meaning go get the sisters together and form your own organizations. And she said, I was disappointed, but I felt called to do this work, and that's exactly what she did. Upon her return from Detroit, she met with her superior, who enthusiastically supported her plan to organize the nation's Black sisters. They got the support of the bishop, who also agreed to write a letter. And then she drafted a letter to be sent to all of the leaders of the congregations of women across the country. And she asked for them, if they have any Black sisters, to send them to a week-long gathering that was going to take place in August of 1968. And just to give you a sense of how important this meeting was, it's a watershed moment. Never before in the history of female religious life in the United States or anywhere in the Atlantic world had Black sisters come together on a national stage to discuss for themselves their trials and tribulations within the church and to protest racism in the church. And I would even say it's an international stage because there are two representatives from the newly independent nations of Uganda and Kenya who had been studying in the United States, who had received word of the meeting and had come and said that they wanted to participate. And so there is a Pan-African reach. There are also Black sisters who are coming from the Caribbean as well, who are participating, who are a part of that. And in many ways, it was a spiritual awakening for them. I will talk about the origins. So the origins of the National Black Sisters Conference actually lie in April of 1968, soon after the assassination of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis, Tennessee. At that particular time, there had been this gathering, or there was a forthcoming gathering of the National Catholic Conference for Interracial Justice. And as a part of the organization for that conference, there had been a letter circulated by Father Herman Porter, who was a diocesan priest from Rockford, Illinois, who wanted to bring together the nation's Black priests to discuss for themselves their place in the ongoing Black freedom struggle. When Dr. King is assassinated, we all know the story of the rebellions that begin to take place in various cities across the nation for people who come out into the streets and mourn the death and the murder, quite frankly, of Dr. King. At this time, in seminaries and convents across the country, Dr. King's assassination sparks outrage, mourning, but unfortunately, in many white communities, open celebrations of his death. And this also happened in communities, Catholic communities, in seminaries and beyond. In the case of Sister M. Martin de Porres Gray, who was Pittsburgh's first Black religious sister of mercy, Dr. King's assassination certainly was a turning point in her time in religious life. She talks about sort of that moment, sort of just moving around the convent, sort of being, feeling uneasy, and quite frankly, for the first time, she felt unsafe. But it was in that moment after King's assassination and after the attack on her in the community that Mother Thomas Aquinas Carroll says, you know what, whatever I can do to help you. And she asks her the question, what do you want to do for your people? How can I help you do the work that you want to do and you feel called to do within this community? And she said, I didn't know. And then 3 days later, there was a knock and there was a Black priest visiting Pittsburgh. And he was Father John LeBove, who was an SVD priest. He had sort of spent some time traveling and ministering in Pittsburgh and had visited back after King's assassination. And she said, I spoke with him a lot about sort of the Black freedom struggle, what it meant to be who I was in that particular community. And he told me that the priests were gathering in Detroit, she said that the brothers were caucusing, and that they were going to do something for their church and address racism in the church. So at the meeting, she's there. She's there with several priests. There are about 70 priests of the nation's 170 so who are there, who are coming together to decide for themselves their place within the emerging Black revolution, if you will. And initially, she was not invited into the room. So she was there. A brother was there, Joe Davis, and there was a white Catholic priest, Dan Mallett, who had been involved in the civil rights movement in Chicago. They had all been barred from entering into the room because the meeting was primarily for Black priests, not even the seminarians, not the brothers. It's an interesting in that moment where they decide to sort of form a caucus. Patty Gray speaks up. She said, even though I was designated an unofficial observer, I was not supposed to speak. She was very uneasy about the fact that these men were only talking about men. And she said, well, what about the sisters? There are probably more Black sisters than there are priests, and you're going to need Black sisters if this is going to be your push for power within the church. And she said, I was able to convince some of the men, but eventually I was sort of asked, and I asked to become a member of the caucus. And she said there were a couple who were very adamant that I not become a part of this. And she said they decided to take a vote. And she said, when I came back in, I was sort of told that it was not an affirmative vote, but I was told to go get the sisters, to do your own thing. On the one hand, it's a political moment that we know that Black women in the secular world are organizing themselves into their own sort of institutions and organizations, and yet we also have Black sisters who are forming what they initially called to be a Black Power Federation of Catholic Nuns, so they could decide for themselves what would their role be. How would they contribute to this particular moment? We know that the National Black Sisters Conference, in addition to organizing themselves, they organize themselves into various regions. They begin to lead anti-racism workshops. They protest. They participate in marches. They picket archdioceses that are setting to close Black Catholic schools, particularly Catholic schools in inner city communities, but also in predominantly African American communities. They, in many ways, sort of do the whole gamut, if you will, of sort of activism in this particular moment. And what's also critical to them is that what they want to do is to stop the exodus, what they recognize as an ongoing exodus of Black sisters from religious life in particular. So it's an interesting moment. In many ways, they become very noisy in the church. It's an important moment. And they also work with the priest, even though they themselves, Patty Gray, had been rejected. It's an important moment, too, at these meetings. They're educational moments. They provide curriculums to all the teachers so they can go and not simply sort of teach Negro history or Black history as it was then, Negro history as it was then known, but to be able to fully incorporate sort of the stories and the lives of African Americans in all of their curriculums. There are also these opportunities for men and women to preach for the first time, to remember that the first and earliest generations of Black priests were not assigned to African American parishes. So this becomes an opportunity for them to preach for the first time. Sometimes their homilies are going on for 2 and 3 hours to experiment with new kinds of preaching in this sort of age of Vatican II and the liberalizing reforms. In many ways, it's just a beautiful moment of people beginning to realize their full potentials that unfortunately had been denied in this moment. So the National Black Sisters Conference is one of these important organizations that emerges after the Second Vatican Council. And I would also say it was an organization that is probably responsible for the survival of so many vocations of Black women during this time. And it's critically important to tell. The other thing that I do want to mention too is, in addition to doing all of the work with regard to sort of racial justice reform within the church, and in many ways leading the way with regard to that, they are also very much, like so many of their other peers, invested in going back to preserve and to investigate and preserve their foremothers' history in the church. One of the earliest things that they want to do is they want to go back. What were the stories of the women that came before us, not only in the Black orders, but those who had been members of sort of white communities in this moment? So we also see the first attempts to write sort of articles that survey the history of Black sisters in the United States, who see themselves as a part of this long sort of Black Catholic sort of freedom struggle, and they sort of write themselves into history in ways that I think are really powerful and sort of once again remind us how powerful history is and why history will always matter, to understand that you have a place within this particular story of the American Catholic experience, that they were deeply invested in ensuring that it would be preserved.